On a frigid December morning in 2010, in the rural heartland of Missouri, a 10-year-old boy vanished from his bedroom while his family slept just down the hall. His name was Hailey Owens, though that name would not become public until much later when the truth finally surfaced. The house showed no signs of forced entry. The windows remained latched from the inside. His shoes sat neatly by the front door. By the time the sun rose over the frozen cornfields, search teams were already combing through barns and abandoned silos, calling his name into the wind. But the boy was gone. And for 4 long years, the question that haunted a small community would remain unanswered. How does a child disappear from a locked house in the dead of night? And why did the person closest to him seem so strangely unmoved by his absence? The town of New London sat tucked into the northeastern corner of Missouri, a place where the Mississippi River carved deep into limestone bluffs and winter arrived early, settling over the landscape like a held breath. Population, just under 1,000. Main Street stretched for 6 blocks, lined with brick storefronts that had weathered a century of Midwestern seasons. A grain elevator rose against the skyline. The elementary school sat at the edge of town, surrounded by fields that turned gold in autumn and white in winter. People knew each other here. They knew which families attended which church, whose children played on which softball teams, who worked at the fertilizer plant and who drove trucks across state lines. In December of 2010, the Owens family lived in a modest ranch-style house on rural Route 154, about 3 miles outside the town center. The property consisted of 4 acres, enough room for a garden plot, a small tool shed, and a rusty swing set that creaked in the wind. The house itself was built in the 1970s, wood-paneled walls and linoleum floors, the kind of home that stayed cool in summer and required heavy blankets in winter. James Owens, 38 years old, worked as a long-haul trucker, gone for days at a time hauling freight between Kansas City and Memphis. His wife, Maria, 35, worked part-time at the county library, shelving books and managing the children's reading programs. They had 2 children, Hailey, age 10, and his younger sister Emma, age 7. Those who knew the family described them as quiet, private, keeping to themselves in the way rural families often did. Maria attended services at the First Baptist Church most Sundays, bringing the children when James was on the road. Hailey played Little League baseball in the summer, a lanky kid with dark hair and a gap-toothed smile. He liked to build things, elaborate structures made from sticks and string, fortresses constructed from couch cushions. He collected rocks from the creek bed behind the house, organizing them by size and color on the windowsill of his bedroom. December 14, 2010, arrived with temperatures hovering just above freezing. A light snow had fallen overnight, dusting the fields and fence posts with white. Morning came slowly that time of year, the sun rising pale and distant over the horizon. Maria woke at 6:30, as she did every weekday, moving through the cold house in her robe and slippers. She started the coffee maker. She turned up the thermostat. She walked down the narrow hallway to wake the children for school. Emma's door opened easily. The girl was already stirring, curled beneath her quilts, stuffed animals arranged around her pillow. Maria touched her shoulder gently. "Time to get up, sweetheart." Then she moved to Hailey's room. The door stood slightly ajar, unusual because Hailey always closed it completely at night, preferring the darkness and quiet. Maria pushed it open. The bed was empty. The blankets lay pulled back, as though he had simply climbed out and walked away. His school clothes, laid out the night before on the dresser, remained untouched. The window showed frost on the inside of the glass, the latch secured, the curtains drawn. For those who have ever felt that first cold drop of fear in the stomach, that moment when something is wrong, but the mind has not yet caught up to what the eyes are seeing. Maria stood in that doorway for perhaps 10 seconds before calling his name. Hailey, no response. She walked quickly through the house. Bathroom empty, living room empty, kitchen empty. She opened the basement door and called down into the darkness. Nothing. She went to the back door, locked from the inside, deadbolt engaged. Front door the same. She checked Emma's room again, as though he might have crawled in with his sister during the night. But Emma sat up in bed now, watching her mother with wide eyes. "Where's Hailey?" Emma asked. Maria did not answer. She was already reaching for the phone. The first call went to James, somewhere between St. Louis and Springfield on Interstate 44, his semi loaded with pallets of industrial equipment. He answered on the third ring, his voice thick with highway noise. "Hailey's not in his room," Maria said, her words coming fast. "I can't find him. He's not in the house." There was a pause long enough for the sound of wind buffeting the truck cab to fill the silence. "Did you check everywhere?" James asked. "Everywhere." "James, the doors are locked. The windows are locked. He's gone." "I'm turning around," he said. "Call the sheriff." Maria placed the second call at 7:03 in the morning. Rawls County Sheriff's Department. Deputy Eric Thornton took the information. White male, age 10. Last seen the previous night at approximately 9 o'clock when his mother checked on him before bed. Brown hair, brown eyes, 4 feet 9 inches tall, approximately 70 pounds, wearing blue pajamas with a cartoon character on the front. Deputy Thornton arrived at the house within 20 minutes, his patrol vehicle kicking up gravel as it pulled into the driveway. He was a veteran of the department, 42 years old, with a salt and pepper mustache and a methodical approach to situations that appeared unusual. He walked through the house with Maria, checking each room, each closet, each possible hiding place. He examined the doors and windows. He noted the absence of any forced entry. He asked Maria to walk him through the previous evening, step by step. Dinner had been at 6 o'clock, spaghetti and garlic bread. Hailey had eaten 2 helpings. Afterward, the children watched television while Maria cleaned the kitchen. At 8:30, she told them to get ready for bed. Hailey brushed his teeth, changed into his pajamas, climbed into bed with a library book about dinosaurs. Maria came to his room at 9 o'clock to turn off his light. He was reading. She kissed his forehead. She said goodnight. She closed the door, leaving it open just a crack the way he liked it. "And you didn't hear anything during the night?" Thornton asked. "Nothing. I'm a light sleeper. If he had gotten up, if the floor had creaked, I would have heard." By 8 o'clock that morning, 3 more deputies had arrived. They searched the outbuildings, the tool shed, the old chicken coop that hadn't been used in years. They walked the property, calling Hailey's name, boots crunching through the thin layer of snow. They looked in the drainage culvert that ran beneath the driveway. They searched the tree line at the back of the property where the woods began, thick with oak and hickory, the ground covered in fallen leaves frozen into brittle mats. Nothing. At 9:15, Sheriff Raymond Keller arrived and established the house as a potential scene. He requested additional personnel. He contacted the Missouri State Highway Patrol. By 10 o'clock, a full search operation was underway. Volunteers from the community began arriving, parking their trucks along the county road, organizing into teams. Someone brought coffee in thermoses. Someone else brought maps. The temperature had risen to 38 degrees, the snow beginning to melt into mud. James Owens pulled into the driveway at 11:30, 3.5 hours after receiving his wife's call. He climbed out of the truck, still wearing his work boots and flannel jacket, his face pale beneath several days of road stubble. He spoke briefly with Sheriff Keller, then went inside to his wife. Neighbors who were present said Maria collapsed into his arms, sobbing. James stood still, his hand on her back, his expression unreadable. The search continued through the afternoon. Teams moved outward in concentric circles from the house. covering fields and fence lines, checking abandoned farm equipment and empty grain bins. A helicopter from the highway patrol arrived, circling overhead, the thump of rotors echoing across the landscape. Bloodhounds were brought in, given items from Hailey's room to scent, a pillowcase, a worn t-shirt. The dogs led handlers to the edge of the property, then lost the trail near the county road, as though the scent simply ended. By nightfall, more than 200 volunteers were involved in the search. Floodlights were set up. Church groups brought food. The story had reached the local news stations. Cameras and reporters gathering at the end of the driveway, kept back by sheriff's deputies. Maria and James gave a brief statement standing together on the front porch. Maria's eyes red from crying, James standing slightly behind her, his jaw tight. "Please," Maria said, her voice breaking. "If anyone has seen Hailey, if anyone knows anything, please call the sheriff's department. We just want him home." The cameras captured James placing his hand on her shoulder. They captured the way he looked past the reporters, toward the dark fields beyond. The search continued for 3 days. Teams covered a 5-mile radius. Divers checked farm ponds and the nearby creek. Every abandoned structure within 10 miles was searched. Flyers were distributed with Hailey's school photograph, his smile showing the gap in his front teeth. Tips came in, dozens of them, each one followed up, each one leading nowhere. On the 4th day, December 18th, the active search was scaled back. Sheriff Keller held a press conference, his face drawn with fatigue. "We are not giving up," he said. "This remains an active investigation, but we need something more to go on. We need information." Behind the scenes, deputies whispered quietly among themselves. Something about the scene did not sit right. The locked doors, the undisturbed windows, the dog losing the scent at the road as though Hailey had gotten into a vehicle. And there was something else, something harder to quantify. The way James Owens remained so composed, so controlled, while his wife came apart at the seams. Deputy Thornton had noticed it. During those first frantic hours, while Maria paced and cried and called Hailey's name, James sat at the kitchen table, methodical, answering questions with precision. His hands folded in front of him. When asked about his truck route, he provided exact times and locations. When asked about his relationship with his son, he said it was fine, just fine, nothing more. For those who have ever doubted someone you love, who have felt that cold whisper of suspicion beneath the surface of trust, the investigators knew that feeling. But suspicion is not evidence. And without evidence, the case grew cold. Part 2. The investigation clears throat. The search operation for 10-year-old Hailey Owens transformed the town of New London from a quiet rural community into the center of a media storm. By the second week of December 2010, satellite trucks lined Main Street. National news outlets picked up the story. The case drew comparisons to other vanishing cases, each one ending in tragedy. Volunteers continued to arrive from surrounding counties, organizing search parties that combed through every accessible piece of land within a 15-mile radius of the Owens property. Sheriff Raymond Keller coordinated with the FBI's Child Abduction Rapid Deployment Team. Agents arrived with specialized equipment, databases of registered offenders, behavioral analysis profiles. They interviewed everyone who had contact with the family, teachers at New London Elementary School, the pastor at First Baptist Church, parents of Hailey's classmates, neighbors on the surrounding properties, though the nearest lived more than half a mile away. The investigation moved in concentric circles, starting with those closest to the victim and working outward. Standard procedure in cases involving missing children. Statistics showed that in the vast majority of such cases, the perpetrator was someone known to the family, often someone living in the household. The FBI agents knew this. Sheriff Keller knew this. And so they looked carefully at James Owens, His alibi appeared solid. Cell phone records placed him on Interstate 44, approximately 130 miles from home, during the window when Hailey disappeared. His truck had an electronic logging device that recorded his movements, showing he had departed St. Louis at 6:45 that evening, heading west toward Springfield. Fuel receipts corroborated his location. At 9:30, roughly the time Maria said she last checked on Hailey, James had stopped at a truck stop outside of Union, Missouri, purchasing coffee and a sandwich. Security footage showed him entering the store, making his purchase, returning to his truck, but investigators noted something curious. According to the truck's odometer and electronic logs, James had driven approximately 170 miles that night, from St. Louis to the truck stop, and then continuing west. Yet the direct route between those points measured only 130 miles, 40 miles unaccounted for. When questioned about the discrepancy, James explained he had taken a detour to avoid construction on the main highway, adding distance to his route. "Which roads did you take?" investigators asked. "County roads. I don't remember the numbers. I've driven these routes for 15 years. I know shortcuts. And you stopped nowhere else. Just the one truck stop. I showed you the receipt." The explanation was plausible, but it was also impossible to verify. County roads had no traffic cameras, no toll booths, no way to track a vehicle's passage except through the driver's own account. Investigators requested permission to search the truck. James consented immediately, too immediately perhaps, in a way that struck some deputies as rehearsed. The truck was processed over 2 days. Forensic technicians went through the cab and the trailer with luminol, looking for any trace of blood or biological evidence. They found nothing. The cab was clean, almost unnaturally so, wiped down and organized with military precision. For a truck that spent weeks on the road, that supposedly served as a second home, it showed remarkably little personal residue. Most truckers' cabs are a mess, one forensic technician noted in his report. Food wrappers, coffee cups, maps, personal items. This one looked like it had been detailed. When asked about the cleanliness of his truck, James said simply, "I like things organized." The investigation also focused on Maria. She submitted to multiple interviews, her story remaining consistent across each telling. Yes, she had checked on Hailey at 9 o'clock. No, she had not heard anything during the night. Yes, all the doors and windows were locked in the morning. She took a polygraph examination, which she passed. Her phone records showed no suspicious activity. Her computer search history revealed nothing concerning. Every aspect of her life, laid bare and examined, showed a woman telling the truth. And yet the investigators kept returning to a simple, troubling question. How does a child vanish from a locked house? 3 theories emerged. First, that Hailey had somehow unlocked a door or window himself and wandered outside, perhaps sleepwalking, and met with some accident or misadventure in the dark. Search teams had found no evidence to support this. No tracks in the snow, no clothing snagged on fences, no body in the surrounding fields or water sources. Second, that an intruder had entered the house through means that left no trace, taken the boy, and relocked the doors behind them. This seemed vanishingly unlikely. The house had no basement windows large enough for an adult to enter. The attic access was inside the hallway. Every window showed frost on the inside, indicating they had not been opened recently enough for the condensation to clear. Third, that someone in the household was lying. By January 2011, 6 weeks after Hailey's disappearance, media attention began to wane. The daily press conferences stopped. The satellite trucks departed. The volunteers went home. The FBI agents returned to their field offices, leaving the case in the hands of local authorities. Sheriff Keller assigned Deputy Thornton as the primary investigator, But with no new leads, no witnesses, no physical evidence, the case file grew thicker with dead ends. Those who knew James Owens during this period said he seemed to retreat into himself. He returned to his truck roots, back on the road within 2 weeks of Hailey's disappearance. Maria found this cold, incomprehensible. "Our son is missing and you're going back to work," she said, according to a neighbor who overheard the argument through thin walls. "We need the income," James replied. "Bills don't stop because of tragedy." He was not wrong, but his practicality felt cruel. Maria took a leave of absence from the library, unable to focus on anything except the empty bedroom down the hall. She left Hailey's room exactly as it had been that morning, his dinosaur book on the nightstand, his rocks lined up on the windowsill. She washed his sheets and made his bed, as though he might return any day and need a clean place to sleep. Emma, the 7-year-old sister, stopped talking. Not selectively, not shyness, but a complete withdrawal into silence. Teachers at the elementary school sent her to the guidance counselor. The counselor referred her to a child psychologist in Hannibal, 20 miles away. Maria drove her there twice a week, sitting in waiting rooms while Emma met with doctors who tried to coax words from her small, closed mouth. The community rallied around Maria, bringing casseroles and offers of prayer. They were less certain what to do with James. He attended the candlelight vigil held in Hailey's honor in January, standing at the back of the crowd, while Maria spoke tearfully about her son. Afterward, neighbors approached him, offering condolences, and he nodded politely, shaking hands, his expression composed. One woman, a Sunday school teacher from the church, later told investigators, "It was like shaking hands with a statue." Deputy Thornton continued to investigate, working the case during hours when other duties allowed. He reviewed phone records again and again, looking for patterns. He drove the route from St. Louis to Union, trying to understand how James had added 40 miles to his trip. He spoke with other truckers who knew James, asking about his character, his habits, his relationship with his family. James kept to himself, one fellow trucker said. Didn't socialize much at the truck stops, didn't complain about home, didn't brag about his kids. Just did his job and went home. Another said, "I remember him mentioning his son once, maybe twice in 5 years. Some guys, they can't stop talking about their families." James wasn't like that. The investigation also uncovered financial stress. The Owens family carried significant debt. Medical bills from when Emma had been hospitalized with pneumonia 2 years prior. A mortgage on the house that exceeded its value after the 2008 housing collapse. Credit card balances that had been growing steadily. James's income as a trucker was decent but not generous, and Maria's part-time library work barely covered groceries. Investigators examined life insurance policies, looking for financial motive, but found nothing unusual. A small policy on each family member, standard coverage through Maria's employer. By March 2011, the case file contained thousands of pages, interview transcripts, search reports, forensic analyses, tips from the public, psychic predictions, conspiracy theories. And still, no answers. Hailey Owens remained missing. No body had been found. No evidence of foul play beyond the impossibility of his disappearance. The investigation reached that terrible plateau where every lead had been followed, every stone turned, and still the truth remained hidden. Sheriff Keller held one final press conference 3 months after the disappearance. He stood behind a podium, his uniform crisp, his face lined with exhaustion. "We continue to actively investigate Hailey Owens' disappearance," he said. "Anyone with information is urged to contact our office. We will never close this case. We will never stop looking for Hailey." But privately, in conversations behind closed doors, investigators acknowledged they had reached a dead end. Without new evidence, without a witness, without a confession, the case would remain unsolved. The file was moved from active to cold, boxed up and stored in the basement of the county courthouse, joining dozens of other cases awaiting that single break that might never come. For those who have worked in law enforcement, who have felt the weight of an unsolved case, the frustration is particular and profound. Deputies whispered quietly among themselves about James Owens, about the locked doors and the clean truck and the 40 unaccounted miles. But suspicion, no matter how strong, is not evidence. And without evidence, a man cannot be charged. The law protects the innocent, even when investigators believe they know who is guilty. The file gathered dust. The town moved on slowly, reluctantly. And James Owens continued to drive his routes, week after week, month after month, saying nothing. Part 3. The silence. 18 months after Hailey disappeared, Maria filed for divorce. The paperwork was submitted to the Rawls County Circuit Court in June 2012, citing irreconcilable differences. Those who knew Maria said she had been preparing for months, quietly gathering financial documents, consulting with a lawyer in Hannibal, planning her exit from a marriage that had become unbearable. She and Emma moved out of the house on rural Route 154 in July, relocating to a small apartment above a hardware store in downtown New London. The apartment had 2 bedrooms, barely enough space for their belongings, but Maria needed to be away from that house, away from Hailey's empty room, away from James. Friends who helped her move said she took very little: clothes, dishes, some furniture. She left most of the photographs, unable to bear looking at images of her son's face, frozen in time at age 10, smiling that gap-toothed smile. She left the dinosaur book on the nightstand. She left the rocks on the windowsill. When someone suggested she take them, that Hailey would want her to have them, she shook her head. "I can't," she said, just that. James remained in the house. He contested nothing in the divorce proceedings, agreeing to all of Maria's terms without negotiation. The house, still underwater on its mortgage, would be his responsibility. Child support for Emma, though minimal given the financial situation. Visitation rights, though Emma had not spoken to her father in months, not since that silent withdrawal began. The divorce was finalized in October 2012. By then, Emma had begun speaking again, slowly, haltingly, simple words to answer direct questions. The child psychologist in Hannibal noted in her records that Emma exhibited signs of complex trauma, nightmares that woke her screaming, an obsessive need to check that doors were locked before bed, an inability to be alone in a room without her mother nearby. For those who have ever lived with unspoken knowledge, who have carried a secret too terrible to speak aloud, the weight becomes physical. It presses on the chest, shortens the breath, makes sleep impossible. Emma showed all these signs. Her teachers noticed. Her counselor noticed. But when asked directly if something had happened, if she knew something about her brother's disappearance, Emma would only shake her head and retreat back into silence. Maria found work cleaning houses for families in Monroe and Shelby counties, driving her old car from job to job, scrubbing bathrooms and mopping floors. Work that exhausted her body and left her mind blessedly blank for hours at a time. She attended church sporadically, unable to maintain the faith that had once sustained her. People meant well, offering prayers and platitudes, but their words felt hollow. God has a plan, they said, and Maria wanted to scream. What plan involves a child vanishing from his bed? What plan leaves a mother with nothing but questions and an empty room? James continued his truck routes, spending more time on the road than ever before. His employer noted that he volunteered for the longest hauls, the runs that kept him away for weeks. When he returned to the empty house on rural Route 154, neighbors said they rarely saw him. His truck would be parked in the driveway for a day or two, then gone again. The grass grew tall. Mail accumulated in the box. The house took on the appearance of abandonment, though someone clearly still lived there. Deputy Thornton drove by the property occasionally, part of his regular patrol route, but also from a persistent curiosity about the case that would not leave him. He had worked dozens of cases in his 20 years with the sheriff's department, but Hailey Owens haunted him in a way the others did not. The locked doors, the missing 40 miles, the father's strange composure. Thornton kept a copy of the case file in his patrol vehicle, reviewing it during slow shifts, looking for something he might have missed. In the spring of 2013, more than 2 years after Hailey's disappearance, Thornton decided to re-interview Emma. The child was 9 years old now, attending 4th grade at New London Elementary. She had been 7 when her brother vanished, perhaps too young to understand what she saw or heard, or too frightened to speak. But time had passed. She was older, more verbal. Thornton approached Maria with the request, explaining that Emma might remember details now that had been inaccessible before. Maria was hesitant. "She's finally starting to heal," she said. "I don't want to traumatize her again." "I understand," Thornton said, "but what if she knows something? What if the answer has been there all along, and we just needed to wait until she was ready?" They scheduled the interview for a Thursday afternoon in April at the Child Advocacy Center in Hannibal, a place designed for sensitive conversation with young witnesses. Emma sat in a comfortable chair, clutching a stuffed rabbit, while a trained forensic interviewer asked gentle questions. Maria watched from an observation room through a one-way mirror, her hands pressed against the glass. The interviewer established rapport first, talking about school, about Emma's favorite subjects, about the weather. Then carefully, "Emma, do you remember the night your brother Hailey went away?" Emma nodded. "Can you tell me what you remember?" A long pause. Emma's fingers worked at the rabbit's ears, twisting them. "I heard something," she said, so quietly the recording equipment barely captured it. "What did you hear?" "Footsteps." "In the hallway. When was this?" "Night. It was dark." "Did you see anything?" Emma shook her head. "Did you hear anything else?" Another long pause. Emma's eyes filled with tears, but she did not cry. "The car," she whispered. "You heard a car, Daddy's truck." The interviewer leaned forward slightly. "You heard your daddy's truck." "When?" "That night. I heard it start. I heard it leave." Maria, watching through the mirror, felt her legs give out. She sat down hard on the floor, her hand over her mouth. "Did you tell anyone about this?" the interviewer asked Emma. Emma shook her head again. "Daddy said never tell. He said it was a secret. He said bad things happen if you tell secrets." The interview continued for another 20 minutes, but Emma could provide few additional details. She had been 7 years old, frightened, hearing sounds in the night that she could not explain. She heard footsteps. She heard her father's truck start and drive away, then return later. She did not know how much later. She heard her mother crying in the morning. And her father had told her to keep it secret, though Emma could not remember exactly when he had said this, only that he had, and that his face had been scary when he said it. Deputy Thornton, watching from the observation room alongside Maria, felt the pieces shifting in his mind. The locked doors made sense now. James had locked them from the inside after taking Hailey out. The missing 40 miles made sense now. That was the detour, the place where Hailey had been taken, hidden, disposed of. The clean truck made sense now. He had scrubbed it afterward, removing evidence. But Emma's statement alone was not enough. She was a child, traumatized, speaking about events from more than 2 years ago. A defense attorney would tear her testimony apart. Thornton needed more. He needed physical evidence. He needed to find where James had gone that night, what he had done with his son. The investigation reopened officially on April 23, 2013. Sheriff Keller assigned additional resources. The FBI agents returned. James Owens was brought in for questioning. this time not as a concerned father but as a suspect. He arrived at the sheriff's department with his lawyer, a public defender from Hannibal, a young woman in her 30s who looked overwhelmed before the interview even began. In the interrogation room, James sat with his hands folded on the table, the same posture he had maintained during every previous interview. Composed, controlled. Investigators presented him with Emma's statement, watching his face for any flicker of reaction. Nothing. "Your daughter says she heard you leave the house the night Hailey disappeared," Thornton said. "She was 7 years old," James replied. "She had nightmares. She confused dreams with reality. She says you told her to keep it secret." "I never said that." "Then why would she say it?" James looked directly at Thornton, his expression flat. "Children say all kinds of things." The interview lasted 4 hours. James admitted nothing, explained nothing, his answers consistent with every previous statement. Yes, he had been on the road that night. No, he had not returned home. No, he had nothing to do with his son's disappearance. Yes, it was tragic. Yes, he missed Hailey. His words carried no emotion, delivered in the same monotone he might use to report a flat tire. For those who have ever sat across from someone and known, absolutely known, they are lying, the experience creates a peculiar rage. Thornton felt it building, that desire to reach across the table and shake the truth loose. But the law does not work that way. The law requires evidence. Investigators went back to the beginning. They re-examined the truck logs, looking for any anomaly. They pulled records for all cell towers along Interstate 44 and the surrounding county roads, mapping the pings from James's phone against his stated route. They found something. A cluster of pings between 9:45 and 10:30 that night, placing his phone near the town of Curryville, 15 miles south of the main highway. A detour, an unexplained detour. Curryville consisted of fewer than 200 residents, a crossroads community surrounded by farmland and forest. Investigators began canvassing the area, showing photographs of James, asking if anyone remembered seeing his truck. Most people shook their heads. But one elderly farmer, 83 years old, living alone on a property that bordered state conservation land, said yes. He remembered. "Big truck came down my road that night," the farmer said, his voice rough with age. "Middle of the night, woke me up. Don't get trucks down here. Road's too narrow." "What time was this?" "Past 10. Maybe 10:30. I got up to look, saw the tail lights heading toward the back section. Didn't think much of it, figured someone lost." "Did you see the truck leave?" "Must have. Wasn't there in the morning." The farmer's property included 300 acres, most of it timber. A dirt road ran through the back section, used occasionally by hunters during deer season, otherwise abandoned. Investigators obtained permission to search. They brought cadaver dogs. They brought ground-penetrating radar. They spent 6 days combing through thick underbrush and rocky terrain. On the 7th day, May 2nd, 2013, they found disturbed earth near an old rock quarry, long since flooded and overgrown. The dogs alerted. The technicians began to dig carefully, sifting through soil and clay. 3 feet down, they found fabric. Blue fabric with a cartoon character, a child's pajamas, and then they found bones. Small bones. The skeleton of a 10-year-old boy, still partially clothed, buried in a shallow grave covered with rocks and branches. The skull showed trauma, a fracture consistent with a blow from a blunt object. The medical examiner later estimated time of death as consistent with December 14th, 2010. DNA testing confirmed the identity within 48 hours. Hailey Owens had been found. Part 4. The revelation: James Owens was arrested on May 4th, 2013, at a truck stop outside of Columbia, Missouri. He was pulled over during a routine traffic stop, deputies approaching with weapons drawn, ordering him out of the vehicle. Witnesses at the truck stop said he complied without resistance. his hands raised, his expression unchanged. He was transported back to Rawls County in handcuffs, processed at the jail, and charged with first-degree felony charges in connection with his son's demise and tampering with physical evidence. The arrest made national news. Television crews returned to New London. Reporters camped outside the courthouse, outside Maria's apartment, outside the house on rural Route 154. The story had everything the media craved: a missing child, a family tragedy, a father accused of the unthinkable. Legal analysts debated the strength of the case on cable news. True crime podcasts devoted episodes to the timeline, the evidence, the question of motive. Maria gave a brief statement to the press, standing on the courthouse steps, her lawyer beside her. "I am relieved that Hailey has been found," she said, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. "I am devastated by what happened to him. I hope justice will be served." She refused to take questions, walking away as reporters shouted after her. Emma was not present. She remained in school, shielded from the media circus, trying to maintain some semblance of childhood despite everything that had been taken from her. Her therapist in Hannibal worked with her daily in the weeks following the arrest, helping her process the knowledge that her father had taken her brother, that the secret she had carried for so long was now public. The case went to trial in September 2014, nearly 4 years after Hailey's disappearance. The prosecution was led by the Rawls County prosecutor, assisted by attorneys from the state attorney general's office. They presented a methodical case, building the evidence piece by piece. Cell phone records showed James's phone pinging near Curryville on the night in question, contradicting his statement that he had stayed on the main highway. The farmer's testimony placed a semi-truck on his property during the relevant time window. The burial site was accessible only by the dirt road that ran through that property. The pajamas and skeletal remains were identified conclusively as Hailey's.